Some wounds don't bleed. They just lie quietly beneath the surface, waiting for someone to touch them and set them ablaze. I used to think nothing could make me lose faith in family, until the very person I called sister turned me into a criminal, just to protect her own lie. The most painful thing isn't betrayal itself. It's realizing that sometimes the one who hurts you the most is also the one who once loved you the most. My name is Emily. I'm 29, a software engineer who once had everything people call stable, a career, a small apartment in Austin, and a family I thought loved each other. My cousin Claire, 3 years older, was like my real sister. My mother passed away early, and Claire was there through everything. When we were teens, she brushed my hair, helped me pick prom dresses, and taught me how to hold my tears when someone hurt me. Silence is the strongest weapon a woman can have, she used to say. I believed that. And maybe that's why her silence later destroyed me. When I joined a big tech company, my life changed fast. I was promoted, earning enough to help my family. Claire, meanwhile, was jobless and fresh out of a breakup. One night she called me, her voice trembling. Emily, I just need a place to stay for a few months. Of course, I said yes. I owed her too much. At first, living together felt easy. I worked long hours, and she cooked, cleaned, even joked sometimes. My tech princess is killing it, huh? But slowly, things shifted. Claire started using my stuff without asking. Makeup, clothes, even my laptop. She'd post photos from my apartment with captions like, "New home, new chapter." It felt strange, but I didn't want to argue. I thought she was just trying to feel okay again. Then one night, I caught her using my laptop, not to watch movies, but to send out job applications. Under my name. When I asked, she laughed, "I'm just borrowing your format, don't make it a big deal." I said nothing. But that night, I changed all my passwords. I thought that would be the end of it. Weeks later, HR emailed me. We received a report linking your account to unauthorized data access involving another employee. I thought it was a mistake, until police knocked on my door. Claire stood there, eyes red, telling them I had hacked into her personal account, stolen private photos, and threatened to leak them unless she paid me. I froze. When they cuffed me, she avoided my gaze. I remember her calm voice telling the officers, "She's controlling, obsessive." That was the moment I realized. The person I loved like family had turned me into a scapegoat for something I didn't yet understand. They held me for 48 hours. My laptop was seized. The company suspended me. My name appeared on the internal bulletin, under investigation. Friends disappeared. Family texted, not to ask if I was okay, but to ask, "Did you really do that to Claire?" I laughed through tears. They didn't want the truth. They wanted closure. That night, after release, I sat in my empty apartment surrounded by summons papers, unanswered messages, and silence. I remembered her eyes as I was taken away, not angry, not scared, just calculating. That's when I understood. To her, I was no longer family. I was a shadow that needed erasing, and in that moment, I made a decision. If they wanted silence, I'd give them silence. But not as submission and as observation. Because no lie stands forever. Only data waiting to be uncovered. There's something strange about crowds. They don't need evidence, just a story that makes sense. Claire's story was perfect. She said I was jealous, controlling, incapable of letting her succeed. The internal report spread faster than I could respond. To everyone, I wasn't Emily the quiet engineer anymore. I was Emily the hacker cousin. People didn't confront me. They just avoided eye contact, smiled politely in elevators. A few weeks later, an email from HR arrived. "Due to reputational concerns, we are terminating your employment." Claire came to collect her things, voice soft with pity. I never meant for it to go this far. I just needed to protect myself. Protect herself by destroying my life. I said nothing. She avoided my eyes, then added, "Maybe you should get help, Emily. You're not well." That sentence broke me more than any verdict could. It made people believe not only that I was guilty, but unstable. I left the apartment with only a suitcase and an old hard drive, the only thing police hadn't taken. Back then, I thought keeping it was meaningless. I didn't know it was my key. Months blurred together. I lived off savings, applied for jobs that never called back. Every form had that one question. Any ongoing investigation? Technically, yes. Legally, no one cared. Claire, meanwhile, thrived. She appeared on talk shows speaking about emotional abuse between women, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine. Comments flooded in. She's so brave. Family betrayal is the worst. I didn't feel anger anymore, just emptiness. But I saved everything. Videos, comments, dates, every piece of her fiction. Then one night, I received a text from an unknown number. She did the same thing to me. No name, no details. Then another message. Claire. 2016, Seattle. That year, Claire had lived with a man named Mark. She said he cheated, abused her. But the tone of that text didn't sound like an abuser's. I replied, "Who are you?" He sent a photo, a police report signed Mark Reynolds listing Claire Watson as the accuser. Charges: financial fraud and extortion. Case dismissed due to lack of evidence. The puzzle clicked. Claire hadn't destroyed me out of envy. She was running from something. And I was her perfect shelter. Reputable, clean, trusted. If her story once collapsed in Seattle, she only needed to create a new one, this time with me as the villain. I plugged in my old hard drive. Inside a temp folder, several image files dated the day of my arrest. Each had strange metadata. The user wasn't me, but guest.cl. Then I remembered. Before everything happened, Claire had borrowed my laptop to send her CV. I had changed passwords, but never logged out the guest account. A small detail, but it changed everything. She had created the private Claire folder herself, moved her own photos, altered logs so it looked like I did it. A flawless setup, unless I still had that hard drive. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. I could go to the police, the press, sue her, but after years in darkness, I no longer believed justice sets anyone free. Truth doesn't fix, it just shifts who gets blamed. I smiled. If silence was the weapon she once taught me, then maybe it was time I used it, my way. I used to think silence was submission, but after finding those files, I realized silence, when deep enough, becomes an undertow that pulls everything false to the surface. I didn't call the police. I didn't shout online. I started with observation. I sent an anonymous email to Mark Reynolds, attaching the logs and photos. Just one line. "You're not the only one." 3 days later, he replied, "I know what she's hiding. If you want to talk, I'm here." We met at a small cafe outside the city. He looked older than his photos, tired but sharp. "Claire can make anyone believe her," he said. "She made me think I owed her everything. Then I found 30 grand missing from my company account." "Why didn't you report her?" I asked. "I did. She threatened to leak fake evidence that I was cheating taxes." He smirked bitterly. Then she vanished. Different stories. Same method. He gave me a bank statement showing C. Watson Holdings in a shell company. A network of lies built on other people's reputations. I didn't want revenge. I wanted closure. I didn't want her ruined. I wanted her seen. So I made a new social media account, posing as a journalist who covered emotional fraud cases, a trending topic. I posted an anonymous story. What would you do if the person you loved most built their life on lies? A woman who destroyed 3 careers, 2 reputations, all to hide one secret. No names, no photos. Just a story. And on the internet, a story is stronger than truth. Within 2 weeks, it hit 200,000 views. Reddit threads, TikTok videos, all speculating who she was. Someone commented, "Sounds like Claire Watson." I didn't have to do anything else. The crowd handled it. Claire disappeared from events. Her interviews canceled without explanation. Then one night, my phone buzzed. "Emily, we need to talk." I ignored it. 2 days later, she stood at my door. No makeup, messy hair, a broken woman. "Did you write that post?" I looked at her. If you think I did, maybe that says something. She gave a weak laugh. You don't understand. They'll destroy me. I already was destroyed, I said. Now it's Truth's turn, she broke down. Not dramatically, just silent sobs that came from exhaustion. You think I did all this out of hate? No, out of fear. Because if they knew, I'd be no one. Knew what? She looked up, and for the first time in years, I saw the real Claire. I didn't just lie to you, she whispered. I've lied to myself. When I was young, I was controlled, beaten, humiliated. I swore I'd never let anyone have power over me again. The only way I knew to keep control was to take it from others. I said nothing. There were no words that could fill that space. She looked away. Now you understand why I'm afraid, I nodded. Understanding isn't the same as forgiving. She nodded back, turned, and left. I didn't stop her. I just watched her figure disappear into the night. For the first time in years, I didn't feel hate. Only quiet. The silence she once taught me had finally returned to what it was meant to be. Not a weapon, but an ending. Silence doesn't erase the past. It just helps you hear its echo clearer. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Her words, her face, the half-truths, they circled in my head. I'd waited for this moment for years, thinking her fall would free me. But all I felt was emptiness. I reopened the hard drive, the proof, the logs, everything that could clear my name. I could take it to the police, the media. One click and her lies would collapse. But that would mean dragging both of us back through the same mud, letting strangers dissect our pain. I wondered, does anyone really win in stories like ours? Days later, my mother called. Her voice trembled. Claire left town. I heard she's getting therapy. I said nothing. She added softly, I know things are complicated, but if you can, forgive her. Forgive, the hardest word of all. I visited our old apartment. The door was locked, mailbox full of ads. Inside, just dust and silence. She'd left a few things. A scarf, some notebooks, a photo of us at 18. I picked it up. We were smiling, her head on my shoulder. Memories never betray you. They just wait for you to face them. I took the evidence to my old lawyer. He skimmed through it, then looked up. You can win easily. I asked, and what changes if I do? He sighed. Justice doesn't restore dignity. It just records that you were right. That was all I needed to hear. That night, I archived every file into one journal. Not to accuse, but to remember. I titled it, What Silence Means. I sent a copy to Mark with one line, The rest is up to you. The next morning, I drove out to the countryside. The road cut through dry fields under pale fog. I stopped by a lake where Claire and I once fished as kids. I tossed each file, each USB into the water, watching them sink slowly. I didn't need vindication anymore. I already had the truth. And sometimes truth doesn't need recognition, only peace. As I turned back, my phone buzzed. Thank you. I'm trying to live better. No name, but I knew. I didn't reply. I just smiled, whispering to myself, maybe silence finally found its own voice. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's looking at the one who hurt you and realizing they no longer have power over your emotions. Time moved like an old film, faded but persistent. I left the city, moving to a small coastal town where no one knew my name or cared about the past. Here, mornings start with burnt coffee, seagulls, and strangers greeting each other with glances instead of questions. I rented a tiny house facing the sea. Just a table, a laptop, and some books. I taught online programming. Modest, but enough. Sometimes I reopen what silence means. I read my own words from sleepless nights. Not to relive, but to remind myself I survived. No anger, no fear. Just a quiet acceptance that healing means letting go of who you were when you were hurt. One autumn morning, an email arrived. No subject, no name, just a photo of a blue sky and trembling words beneath. You were right. Silence is an escape. Thank you for not destroying me. I didn't need to check the sender. I knew it was Claire. No tears, no drama, just a faint smile. I saved the photo not to keep her, but to close the chapter. I stepped outside. The ocean shimmered under mist. The waves were cold but gentle. The sun was rising, slow and patient. My reflection stretched across the sand, lighter than ever. People say forgiveness is a gift to others. I think it's a gift to yourself. The gift of not letting pain define you anymore. Claire once taught me that silence was the strongest weapon. Maybe she was right, but only when used to heal, not to control. I returned inside, opened my laptop, and started my morning class. "Good morning, everyone," I said softly. "Today, we'll learn how to rewrite an old program without deleting the original code." Dozens of young faces smiled back. And I realized, life is just code. No matter how many errors, we can always rewrite it, line by line. When class ended, I looked out at the sea again. The sunlight painted the water gold. I whispered, not to anyone, but to the quiet air around me. Silence isn't my weapon anymore. It's how I exist, peacefully.